Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Be Your Own Loud podcast. I'm your friendly neighborhood podcasting expert, Matt Halloran. This show has a very, very specific philosophical underpinning to it, which is that we're going to meet amazing people, talk to them about who they are, what makes them truly unique and different, and how they have embodied being their own loud. Our purpose with our company, Proudmouth, is to free the world's experts from sales. And the best way to do that is to build an amazing relationship. Be truly and authentically yourself. Listen to what people say on these shows because they're going to tell you how they have become their own loud and how they have risen above the noise. All right, David. Our guest,
hello.
Rich Michael, man. How you doing, dude? It's nice to have you on the show.
I'm doing well, man. And it'll be an interesting feat for me to match your energy because I'm typically a low, even keel guy.
Well, maybe
I'm excited, though.
Well, maybe you'll balance me out a little bit because I have been told I can be just a smidge over the top. All right. So, well, you and I met. Let's talk about quickly how we met because I think the power of getting to know super cool people is freaking just amazing. And we met because I had interviewed somebody who asked you to be a main stage and open up something called The Gathering, which is the world's largest marketing event. And you did your opening, was it 3 years ago?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was who was it? Who introduced us?
That would be Ryan Gill.
Mr. Gill.
Yeah. He's a powerhouse, that guy. A yes guy, right? He's always he never looks at an opportunity as a problem, or rather a problem as anything but an opportunity, right? And he always likes to challenge people. So he threw this last minute. He's like, hey, he saw probably my first piece that I performed at Creative Mornings. And he's like, hey, what do you think about doing something like that at The Gathering? I'm like, what? It's like my second time on stage. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Not knowing what it was going to look like, but wanting to try the opportunity out.
We call that crisis-tunity, brother. Every time that there's a crisis, that means that you can look at it as a crisis or an opportunity. I think I actually stole that from Homer Simpson. That's a Simpsons quote there. But,
he's a wise man.
He is a wise man. I absolutely love the idea of rising to the challenge. And you have done that consistently. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I ask everybody the same question, David, right out of the gate, which is like, how did you become you? Like, how have you embodied yourself over the years to become and do all of the wonderful things that you do for people, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to say it was really well-intentioned and articulate and clear. And I knew exactly what steps I needed to take, one after the other. And that wasn't the case. For a good part of 20 years of my life, I wandered aimlessly. I made myself bad and wrong for my perceived limitations and inabilities in the moment, although I hadn't really acquired any. It was the process of getting there that I just didn't know. I didn't know any better. I thought I was supposed to just land on it, get it. It's like, you get tapped and you found your calling. Hindsight, after having experienced a number of life-changing experiences and looking back at them, I got to see the intuitive direction that I was going in and was able to connect the dots for myself now that I was ready to look at it with that introspection. Yeah, it was at that time where I really saw, that was necessary for me to get to that next stage in my life where I was exploring and trying to figure out, am I a creative person? I think we are all creative people. And well, what does that look like for me, right? As opposed to the first time going to college and like literally right out of high school, going to ACAD, Alberta College of Art, and being rejected. And I made that mean everything, right? Like that I was not capable. But that was the journey. I needed to elevate, right? That was the opportunity is, you weren't quite good enough. And that doesn't mean you throw everything out the window, but that's what I did. I had it it was an all in or all out context.
Yeah. When did you have the epiphany, or is it an ongoing epiphany for you to be okay with you being you publicly?
There was an epiphany for sure. It started when I'd say about 7 years ago. So I'm 42. It started 7 years ago. It was a larger than life character that showed up in my world, and how he showed up, who he was larger than life, energetic, excited. There was always something to be grateful for in his world. And I'm like, damn, man, like, what is it about you? And I get some of that. And that led me down a path of self-discovery, like really understanding who I was and what makes me tick, right? Like the inner dialogue and all the stories that we bring along with us for the ride. And I started to unpack it, unravel it, and go, oh, so that's why I do what I do. And as I started to get clearer about that, I saw what it was that I could allow myself to own, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be my own loud, as it were, to be my own truth, to just express myself the way I deep down wanted to be able to do. I said I could actually just do that. And there was a freedom there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just used the word truth, and since we've been running the show, which hasn't been very long, I've never had anybody give me a line of questions. So for everybody, full disclosure here, David and I have talked before this, and we were preparing for the show, getting to know each other a little bit. And so I emailed him and I said, David, it's a very simple show. I start off with asking one question, which is kind of tell me your story, which we just did. And he said, yeah, that's great. But here's a whole bunch of other questions you can ask me. And they're so good. And so he has got questions that are fun to answer, questions about himself, right? And then the last one is, what does he do? We're going to get to a lot of those. But one of the questions, and I was telling Jen, who's our co-host of the show, she's the one who helps make sure that all the right things pop up, links and all of that stuff. She's basically the techno brilliance behind this live stream. But his first question is, what is truth? What is the truth? Which is like the deepest philosophical question. There's like, what is reality? What is truth? What is beauty? Right? What is reality? Right? Those are the four major questions in philosophy. And you launched right into the first one. So, dude, and you just brought up your own truth. What is the truth? How does one find it? And even more importantly, how does one, when they find that truth, make that part of who they are and part of their expression?
Yeah. After exploring it for myself and really digging in with a group of people to ask a very existential question, what is the truth? I can't help but be pulled back into what I was told was the truth. And so I was raised in a very strong religious context. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of values, and I got a lot of really good things out of that. And there was also this other side of things that seems so absolute. You can't challenge the truth. It's very hard to challenge the truth in its definition. It's like, yeah, but it's true. So how could you possibly challenge it, right? Yeah. So. And I was constantly raised with that as the language. It's like, this is the truth. And so I just accepted it for what it was. And there came a point in my life where there was a misalignment. Like something just wasn't fitting with how I saw the world, how I wanted to see the world, and what was told to me as the truth. So I asked myself that question, what is the truth? And the answer is, there is no truth. Really, it is a journey of self-discovery, and it is about accepting who we are and what drives us. What do we believe at our core, and do we trust ourselves are we willing to trust ourselves at that level? Are we willing to go deep enough to figure it out, right? And then the truth reveals itself. It's like, yeah, what's important to me? What's important to me is that other people are heard and understood, that that inclusivity and equity and all of these things that have been thrown around to the loss of its value in what it actually means. It's time to actually take something back there, like move it forward, do something about it, and it requires action. So my truth is just continuing to do what needs to be done in the space of having people feel like they're actually heard for the value they bring in the world. And it's not the same for everybody. It's different, right? It's not the same for everyone.
So how do you do that? I mean, this is going to kind of get us into your work and in your performance, in your art, and all of the things that really truly make you you. But people who are listening right now, how do you help? Do you help them figure out their truth? Number one, in your because you coaching, right? So I mean, you wear many hats, but do you help them with that? And then when somebody does come to you and they found their truth either with you or without you, what do you do with that? What is like, here's my truth, David, this is who I am. This is what I do. Where do you take me from there?
Yeah. Well, I started in the world of marketing and communications. Actually, I started as a designer. This notion of expressing an idea into the world was a curiosity, right? And done well, man, you can really make a big impact. And I always wondered how do you do that? How do you really make an impact out in the world? And it came down to really understanding what is important to me, what's valuable to me, and where can I make the difference? And so I started in this world of communications, but I felt a fundamental disconnect because it all came, I shouldn't say all of it, but a vast majority comes from a place of persuasion. Yeah. I'm going to convince you that what I have is what you need. And I'm like, that doesn't feel right. And I'm not going to get into where it comes from. And it's got a long, rich, dark history, right? Our ways of communicating and marketing to one another. And it was just off for me. So the exploration started there is like, okay, so if not that, then what? Because we still need to share and speak and talk about what it is that we're doing, but how do we do it? So when I work with clients, and it could be individual people, organizations, there is something at their core that isn't their product or service. Mm-hmm. It's not the thing to market. And you as a marketer, and I would assert, you get this. It's like you just can't come at it with the sales pitch anymore. Right. And more people are getting that. So if it's not that, then there has to be a deeper understanding and a clarity of purpose, right? I'm selling this thing, but to what end? Why does it matter? What difference does it make? And so that's the work that I do with my clients is get them to figure out what that is, and remove all the tactic and strategy that we tend to get bogged down by. And the tactics and strategy support once you get that level of clarity, but you don't lead out with that because it's not long lasting. It doesn't stick around.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where a lot of people fail when they're going to work with a marketing company is they think that they need to take they're on step 3 or 4, where you've got to rewind them back to step 1 and 2 or 3 before they get to all of the tactics. Well, once you have an idea who you are, right, what your truth is, what you're trying to do, what is the foundation of the greater good of what you're offering, then you hire people like us, because then we take that to the next level. But we don't create that front end, dude. That's you, right? You're the person who does that hard work.
Well, and that's been the breakdown, the disconnect for so long. It's like, build my brand, right? If we were to use that rhetoric, build my brand. Well, okay, we can build it and we can manufacture it, and it will at its core already be out of integrity, as in missing pieces, not whole and complete, and won't last very long, because we as a society have become very cautious, very cynical, very critical. We actually aren't as willing to give trust like we had before, because we keep getting burned. Yeah. And so you got to show up. You got to be willing to put it on the table in such a way that people go, yeah, That feels right.
Yeah.
It feels right because it's the truth,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not trying to win you over. I'm not trying to slide one in behind. It is the truth. And either you are resonating with it or you're not.
Right.
And it makes it easy then at that point.
Well, it does. And we call it opt-in marketing, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, David. People want to, you set your message out. Now, you can't just do it once. This is another big failure, I believe, in people who don't truly understand what marketing and branding can do. You set it out over and over and over again, like you do. I mean, you're producing content all the time, right? That's part of your value, right? You are showing me the commitment that you want me to succeed as long as you're talking to me. And I think so many people, David, are so concerned with having such mass appeal that they lose that core truth. What do you think about that?
Oh man, I grapple with that on a daily basis. I get caught. I just had a conversation with somebody about it. You know, this trap of I got to do it the way those people out there do it. And yeah, they do it their way, and the perception is that they're succeeding at it. And so we also want to succeed in what we're doing, right? But is that actually what makes the difference for me as a communicator, a unique communicator, as we all are, or am I getting caught in the trap of the sea of sameness, you know, like looking and sounding like everybody else, or at least looking and sounding like those people, in which case there is nothing truly differentiating about me because I've put myself in the box, right? And so it's an ongoing breaking down the box to allow my own self-expression, my own truth, me, David Schmeichel, to be out in the world. And it takes a level of courage and bravery to do that, to take that on, because you don't know what the output's going to be. You have no idea.
You don't. But the greatest companies, the greatest brands, the greatest people have all had that level of courage. If you were going to give your younger self advice about that, empowering you as a young lad to have the courage that you have today, how would you explain that to young David?
Well, I would have gotten on his ass about going back to ACAD.
All right, fair.
It really is in the experience of the doing, right? I got to be doing stuff. I got to be creating and producing and exploring. There is no the perception or the misconception that our young generation should have it figured out by the time they get out of high school to get into college, to know what it is that you're doing, is ludicrous. It's actually not possible. And we're setting our kids up for failure, not even just failure, because they'll be successful, but they will lack purpose. They won't, at the end down the road, they'll be like, yeah, you know, something's off here. This isn't it. And there's nothing wrong with going through that process. It's just context. I would have given my younger self context for paying attention. What is it that you are noticing as you are exploring, and keep exploring and trying on new things, but notice what shows up. Like, are you leaning more in one direction or another? And why are you leaning more in that direction? What is it that excites you? So pursue that a bit more, right? We have a really bad habit of not starting. Sorry. We have a bad habit of not following through.
Yeah.
We stop too soon. Mm-hmm. We think, no, that wasn't it. Well, what do you mean it wasn't it? You haven't tried it yet. Right? So there's this balancing act between those two worlds. Explore, be curious, don't stop what you've started until you gotten to the point where you can, without a doubt, say, yeah, that's not for me.
I think people try to cut bait far and away too quickly before they've really allowed the reality or the opportunity to truly set in. And I think it's because of the fear of failure. So I want to go here because we have, Proudmouth has been very open and transparent with the mistakes that we've made. We kind of, that's part of our marketing process is, look, we screwed up so you don't have to, when it comes to obviously specifically what we do with podcasting, content marketing, all of that stuff. But how have you learned from failure, and do you wear your failure on your sleeve as a badge of honor, or is it just something you learn from to move on from?
I do wear it as a badge of honor, and I strive to showcase said badges of honor as much as I can.
Yeah.
Well, who gets in the way is the other David that tries to keep me safe, and playing a safe game is a small game. Mm-hmm. And so there are many times where I don't share my failures, my badges of honor, because I think that I've created a story, or the story's been influenced to say, yeah, you should have succeeded there, right? It should have been a success. And it's just a very disempowering place. So those that know me know that I'm very willing to share the journey and what's happened, what hasn't worked. I've got a rich story there, and we all do, if we were to really look, the ups and downs and those near misses. And it's like, wow, my life could have been so different had that thing happened, for good or for bad, right? And I'm learning to really embrace all of it, because it's not good or bad. It just is. It's
brother.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you though, and as I haven't even prefaced this, actually, it's not true. It's in the headline that's up there somewhere, which is a poet, a coach, and a bald guy. I'm the bald guy. I
am also a bald guy.
Yeah. But I didn't want to call you a bald guy in this. I wanted to make sure that I was referring to myself, just because, there's some people who have issues with the hairlessness. But one of the cool things, and part of the way that you have described your experiences in life, so failures, what is that is through poetry, like getting up on stage and being raw. In fact, I was really wavering on just opening the show with your video, right?
Oh.
So Jen's going to put that up on the screen so everybody can go ahead and watch that. Jen, if you could also cut and paste that and throw that in chat, that'd be great. But dude, there's something about you being on stage or utilizing the framework of poetry to communicate your journey. Where the hell did that come from?
I know, right? I ask myself that question. I remind myself of where it came from, because sometimes I'm like, what poetry? Like, of all things.
Yeah.
So it started with my podcast, actually, of all catalyst moments. It was the podcast that triggered it. This innate desire to want to share my story, to talk about what's going on in the moment, in the past, aspirations for the future, whatever it was. Like, it just needed a platform. And so my best friend and I, we started a podcast 4 years ago, and it was just low key, and it was just us bantering back and forth, right? And we still, him not as much. He's got a bunch of other things going on, but this is my arena. This is where I play. And so I continue to record podcasts and continue to explore the platform of storytelling. And then I lost my brother. It was a grim outcome of being tossed through the system, of grappling through mental illness and hanging around the wrong people. And he was taken from us in cold blood. And he was a poet. And so there was something inside that just compelled me to take the rein and keep moving it forward on his behalf. Because while he was a guy that grappled with many dark secrets in many dark corners of society, let alone personally, he was a beacon for those in those areas. He was a pillar that people could count on, and that's what actually had the case get solved so quickly, is because of who he was. And people just saying, no, I have to. The detective's like, this doesn't happen in situations like this. This doesn't happen like this. But because of who he was and how he helped others, people were compelled to be of support, to help and figure it out. And yeah, so that part was the catalyst moment for me to just try it on. Like, well, maybe I will take on poetry. I'll just do it. And so as I do it, I throw myself right in the deep end. And I said yes to a 20-minute talk for Creative Mornings. Mm-hmm. So it was 20 minutes of poetry. And I practiced for 9 months. I wrote it. It's like I got tapped. I don't even know how all that stuff came out so easily, because I also have a story that I'm not a good writer. 30 years running, not a good writer. So a guy who doesn't write and has never done poetry is performing poetry and just taking it to the extreme. It's not typical.
I would agree that it's not typical, but it is something that you have not only excelled at, but you touch a lot of people's lives with the choices of words that you put together. All of those words have been spoken before in different orders, or maybe even in the same order, but because of what you're bringing to it, that's where things change. And what we're finding in your brother is and I'm sorry to say, I mean, a good example, I'm sorry at what happened, but it's the principle of reciprocity, right? When you continuously deposit love, good energy, good knowledge into the karmic pool of whatever you want to call the world of understanding, when you have to draw from that, or even when you ask to draw from that, it's much more receptive to give. That's that abundance mindset. And you use your podcast for a lot of different outlets. Has it been something that you've used to help build and grow your personal business too, or is this just an outlet for you?
Yeah, I think they are symbiotic. What we do, where we spend our time and energy, for one, there's only so much time, energy, and attention that we have at our disposal. And so what we put in, we get out, right? And so, yeah, the podcast has been an opportunity for me to share story, but not just share story, to allow others to share story, who might not ever have considered that they had a story to tell, let alone the platform to tell it. And so I make that available because it's important. And there are some crazy people in this world doing crazy things that are so under the radar. And you're like, how do I not know about you? What's the deal here? And this is the reality. And we got a lot of people on this planet, right? And so a little bit more awareness to what's actually going on versus what the media is shoving in your face is a welcomed alternative from my perspective.
Yeah. And that's why we wake up every morning. It's we want to find those people who have truly something to say that will make a lasting impact on either their community or the greater community or culture as a whole, and to help them rise above the noise and be their own loud. And I think you really just have embodied that. You do it in your way. We don't try to force anybody into doing it our way, right? If you want to do, because you do it all. I'm sorry. You live stream video, right? You do your podcasting. You still write your performance. You do performance, right? So you actually do live poetry. You kind of cover the whole gambit. And we just want anybody who's listening to this to realize that it doesn't matter what media you choose. Just choose one and get your voice out in the marketplace. If you can choose multiple ones, that's great. But you have to find that one that you're really, really, truly comfortable with. Now, we talked a little bit about why you do what you do and in your life experience and where you've gotten to here. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you do what you do, but I want to get a little bit more to the why. you could have chosen a much easier path than you've chosen so far. Why do you get up in the morning and put those headphones on and get behind that microphone and talk to people and do what you do?
Well, the why, I've talked about it a few times now, and it really is just in getting under people who've not shared what it is that they do and the value they bring. The big driver, though, like there is a clear vision of the future that is supporting the why. I think that the why is very purposeful. It comes from your experiences and what doesn't work, and you tend to kind of drive towards changing that, right? And I'm clear about that, and I'm also clear that in order for that to really work well, you need to have a clear vision of the future. There's a lot of clarity there. And for me, there is this aha moment that's happened quite recently. You know, the culmination of exploring it and looking at it and sitting with it and then iterating on it and going, is that it? Is there something else? Like just this constant process, this creative process. It's very chaotic. It's not predictable. It's quite unpredictable. And I've just learned to embrace it. So my vision is that organizations actually become a catalyst for purpose and meaningful work. That our organizations are front and center with our people, with us as people as it is. And we spend so much time there. And so it just makes sense for me to have them be catalysts for this type of conversation, to have the right people doing the right things for themselves inside of the broader picture of an organization, who are also clear about what it is that they're doing and the impact that they're looking to make. And so that's a win-win-win-win-win, like just across the board. And that's what keeps me going, is the ability, the opportunity to be able to get people, get companies to understand that, to define it, and then use it as fuel to just keep going, because it's long lasting. It doesn't expire. It's not
Right.
It's not a revenue goal, right? It's so much bigger than that, and it drives all of those success metrics, right?
So if you were to, so we have a wide audience here, but if somebody's listening to this, who do you want to be introduced to? I mean, if I could tee you up, because I'd love to do this, it'd be maybe very happy. If I could tee you up the ideal person that you just talked about, that you could work with in their organization to help them find that core, to have that permeate everything and create a real cult culture, that everybody is really moving in the same direction to make real change. Who do you want to be introduced to?
Mm-hmm. There's three individuals. They could be working for themselves. They could be working in an organization, leading an organization. And one is the visionary, right? They have big ideas and big plans for the future, but maybe don't have they don't have it as clearly defined as they'd like, to ensure that they get the right type of people on board, right? How you express it, communications is a magic bullet sometimes. If you've expressed it and shared it in a certain way and people go, damn, that, like, I want some of that, right? So that's one. The other one is what I love to call the closet difference maker. They are so passionate about what it is that they do. They have acquired so much knowledge and are maybe in a place now where they're thinking about what's next, right? It's like, yeah, I've done this for so long, and this can't be all there is. There's got to be something else. And they really do want to be able to make a difference out there. They just don't know what that looks like for them, because they've been in the corporate game for however long, or they've been in that role for 25 years, 30 years, whatever it is. And we've got this up and coming generation who are on the spectrum, right? They're either clear and they're just driving forward and also need mentorship, or they lack clarity. They don't know where to go. They feel like they're lost and they need mentorship. Well, that seems like the next logical thing to invest your time in to make the difference around. If it's not like making a company more successful, the next company more successful, how about our people? How about our young people? And I'd love to give them the tools to be clear, like who it is that they're of service to, and what kind of difference they want to make for those type of people. Or it's the aspiring entrepreneur. They've got ideas, they've got dreams. They want to make it tangible, but they've got too much, right? They're too in the clouds. They've got lots of ideas. Well, we got to distill it down. You got to get that. You got to really sharpen it, get it to that pointy tip so that you can just drive forward. Mm-hmm. So they're my three that I love to work with.
There are a couple of words that you've used a lot throughout the podcast. One of them is really clarity, and the other one is vision. And and if I was going to distill those three categories of people, if you are a person who wants more clarity and has a vision and wants to have somebody help you figure that out, that was one of the smartest things that we ever did here at Proudmouth was we hired an outside consulting firm to help us with this new brand. And because Kirk and I have more ideas than we know what to do with. Right. And then basically what we did and what we would do with somebody like you, we just give all of those ideas, those visions, those feelings, all of those things. And then when you work with somebody like David, everybody, what happens is they help clarify the muddied waters that a lot of us, aspiring entrepreneurs or even habitual entrepreneurs or crazy people like us who love to start businesses and do, crazy new things. It's wonderful to have somebody like David in your corner because it gives you the opportunity to gain the clarity that most of us just flat out don't have. It also helps, and I heard you say this, align everybody who's involved with the philosophical underpinnings, the purpose of the organization, which will hopefully be bigger than just make freaking more money. Because you know what? You can make more money whenever, but one of the things that if you start making change, then we believe everything else will follow. Right now, maybe that's just, I'm a ridiculous optimist, David, but
I'm right there with you, man.
Are you? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that
you got to be ridiculously optimistic in this world. Otherwise, I mean, the outcome's not very good otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't want to be in the same sea of sameness. And and maybe that's, my generation, or what the whole Generation X sort of idea of, Rage Against the Machine, F you, I won't do what you tell me sort of idea. Right. And just trying to figure out how we're going to fit in. And it's not a smooth transition, and we don't want it to be. So bring it on. I'll take the lumps. I've been taking the lumps since I was a latchkey kid, when my mom would be like, you need to be home at 10 o'clock tonight. And I would literally be gone. Of course, it wasn't 10 o'clock. It was like 7:30. But, I would be gone. And my mom didn't have a cell phone. She couldn't call me. I was ready to take the bumps and bruises and get into danger. And I absolutely freaking loved every minute of it. Last but not least, so let's kind of start packaging all of this up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we've already shared the links in the chat. We're going to put the other links in the show notes. But as somebody's listening to this and they're like, you know what? I like this dude. How should they reach out to you? What really is the best way to communicate? However you want.
Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so that's the easiest way to reach out to me. My website, davidschmeichel.com, or the Baron Unicorn, not the Baron Unicorn, but the bear as an animal and unicorn.ca. And that's a whole other story. But I had somebody go, the Baron Unicorn, like empty unicorn, like, oh no, that's not how it goes. Anyways, I probably shouldn't have put that in there, because now all you're going to think about is the Baron Unicorn. But yeah, LinkedIn for sure.
Okay, good. Well, the last question that I like to ask everybody, because I like to think that I'm moderately good at doing research and hosting a show, but there are a lot of times that I chase rabbits, dude, that might not have been the rabbits you wanted me to chase through the podcast. Is there, what should I have asked you that I didn't?
Man, you touched on everything, really. yeah, I can't really think of anything that that's like standing out that would have been good to talk about.
Well, I'll make a deal with you, dude. If after we get done today, if you're like, dude, yeah, Matt, you should have asked me this freaking question. I'm mad at you for not doing it. We'll just have you back on the show.
Yeah, that sounds great.
That sounds awesome. All right, everybody. Well, so here's the thing. Everything that David said is the precursor to what we do. And now that's actually not why I had you on the show. I had you on the show because I just thought you were freaking cool and I really wanted to talk to you a little bit. But it's neat to see how these things go together, right? And I was not 1,000,000% clear on what David did for his clients. But when you work with somebody like David, and then when you're about to launch into the world, if you want to launch and have a hell of an impact, that's really where Proudmouth comes in. We're going to take all of the messaging and all of the stuff that David helps you create, the clarity of vision and focus and purpose, and then give you an outlet to get your voice out into the marketplace. That's all. That's what we do. We've got lots of different ways to do it. I'm not going to bore you with all of those, but we'd love it if you would follow us on LinkedIn also. So follow David and follow Kirk and myself and Proudmouth as a company. But the other thing that would be really fantastic, if you do have a moment and you want to see what is possible for you, our Influence Accelerator Academies is a great free way to find out a little bit more about that. And subscribe to David's YouTube channel. Now we put that in there already in the comments and in the chat. Look at what you can do when you have passion, commitment, dedication, and focus. You can create unbelievable content, powerful content that is going to draw people to you. And that's truly what an influencer is. David is an influencer, right? He has created this pool of like positive energy that people just get sucked to and then are like, oh my God, this guy's going to make my life better, different, stronger, whatever. Take a look at that stuff. Because you know what? We're only here for a short period of time. And you might as well live it to the best of your freaking ability. What do you think, David?
I'm honored and humbled that you said what you did, and I agree 100%.
Thanks, brother. All right, everybody. If you have not subscribed to our podcast, make sure you do. If you know anybody who needs to hear this, super easy to share it on social or share it through your podcast streaming network. But for David and for all of us here at Proudmouth, we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
See you later.